Elemental power. No, not that sort. I mean the sort of power that emanates from fantasy books. The sort that makes it feel like the author has successfully breached the wall between the world we know and some other world. The sort of power that I can only describe with metaphor. I'm sure you've felt it as well. It's there in The Lord of the Rings, and it feels like a lantern shining in the dark. Tolkien's element is light. Same thing for Lord Dunsany, but in his case, at least in The King of Elfland's Daughter, this light is sunlight reflected off the surface of a lake. Le Guin's element, especially in The Farthest Shore, which is my favorite fantasy novel, is the sea waves and storm clouds rolling over the sea, and the wind itself. This elemental dimension is the reason why I feel that Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte is secretly a fantasy novel. There are powerful winds blowing through this book, the great winds of mythology. And it's actually a bit funny, because when this book was published, reviewers didn't know what to make of it, but they noted the strange power it possessed. The presence of this sort of power is also one of the reasons why A Stranger in Alondria by Sofia Samatar is the only fantasy novel from this century that I keep on my mental list of favorites. Which past me would have found a bit surprising, because throughout most of the book, as I read it, I kept thinking, yeah, this is pretty good, but I've read better. On an elemental level, there was only some sunlight reflected off the buildings and the pavement, but then the climax arrived, which, in this novel, is a story within a story, and it contained the heat and the heaviness of air before a summer storm, and also the storm itself. But this power is not really about my likes or dislikes, nor is it about quality. I really love Kingdoms of Elfin by Sylvia Townsend Warner. I wish I had known about it before I made this video from a few years ago. This book is much more narrative, but it would have fit pretty well in there. The strange amoral elfins and the strange workings of their kingdoms are simply perfect. But somehow this book doesn't have any elemental power. And Gormenghast by Mervyn Peake, which is on my mental list of fantasy favorites, doesn't have it either. So why do some fantasy writers breach the wall between this world and that, and others don't? And how is such a thing even done? I kept thinking about this stuff all summer, as I wrote a fantasy story myself. Do I have any elemental power in there? For a moment, I could have sworn it smelled of soft and moist soil, but no, the feeling is too tenuous. I don't know how to be elemental.